they said it smacked of necrophilia.
Well, he's dead too.
Yeah,
so I don't think that
so
really
I don't,
counts.
no, it's not necrophilia.
What?
Dude is waiting for a date.
I feel like the two James Whale films are by far the best adaptations there are, even though they take wild liberties.
It's like Monty Python. I'm not dead.
That's right.
Dead.
Just a flesh wound.
She's alive.
It's a feminist film.
Alive.
Yes, it is alive and hopefully well. Welcome to this special edition of the Fright Club podcast. Special topic, special guest, and we're excited about it. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club podcast. We are from maddwolf.com. Check it out, maddwolf.com. And boy, we knew October was going to be busy, but we've had a big month. A lot of thank yous.
A lot of thank yous. But first, I want to just call out the reason that we're doing this special podcast is because we're kind of participating in a large group of podcasters, and every week is really spilling on either side of October, honestly. One of us is going to cover one Universal Monsters sequel. So last week, the Back in Time podcast did Dracula's Daughter, and this week we get to have our special episode.
Yeah, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that we're going to be talking about the Bride of Frankenstein. So that is going to be great. But boy, I tell you, we have had such a great week this past week. Well, it was an extended weekend. Started on Thursday and then wrapped up on Sunday. The 2018 Nightmares Film Fest here in Columbus, Ohio. I know we've been talking about it a lot, but that's because it deserves it. It's such a great event. This year, well, it gets better every year, and this year topped them all.
Yeah, the movies were so much fun, and it's just a great event. We saw so many people there. You know, there were a lot of people who just came to watch the movies. So many filmmakers show up for it.
Yeah, some old friends that we made in past years, some new friends, including a filmmaker, Timothy Troy.
Yeah, who's Ding Dong. He's got a short called Ding Dong.
Now, well, you better rephrase that.
Right, sorry. I apologize. His short film, which is titled Ding Dong, was ran at the festival. It was really, really fun. You can check it out on YouTube,
yes.
I think. You should look it up. And he's a listener as well, so we want to say hey, and it was great to meet you.
It was great to talk to you, find out that you're a listener, and now we're fans of your work, so that is fantastic. So we look forward to seeing old friends and new friends next year. Believe me, if you're a horror fan, love the films, love the horror community, because that's the other added thing about Nightmares. The community aspect is just off the charts.
Absolutely.
You know, big congrats to Jason Tostov and Chris Hamill and the entire staff there at the Gateway. It's such a great event. So please mark it down for October of 2019. We would love to see you. And we also just got done with a couple of special library gigs here in Columbus.
How fun was that?
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had the Upper Arlington Library ask us over, which we recorded the last podcast there.
D-Zach and Pina Joe are responsible for that.
Yeah. And then just a couple of days ago, we did a special presentation. Didn't record it, but did a special presentation on October fun for horror movies at the Bexley Library.
And that was Debbie hooked us up there, a Fright Club, a regular Fright Clubber.
Yeah, so thank you so much. So much fun in October. Busy, but we love it. So we look for the next Fright Club Live. That is coming up, the November edition. That'll be November 14th. Of course, we're back at Gateway Film Center, Columbus, Ohio. And we're going to, a little bit of confusion, but we're going to make good on Black Sheep.
That's right. We're going to show Black Sheep, and we are going to record the podcast finally on mutant animals.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. A real, very, very funny horror comedy that I think you'll love if you're in the area. Please come out and join us. And this is one we're going to try to do Facebook Live.
We are.
We were going to do it last time, but it got a little confused. So we're going to try to do the podcast version of Facebook Live. So stay tuned for that good stuff. So, yeah, let's get to it. We're talking about one movie and one movie only this time, and we've got a special guest, somebody we've been wanting to get on the podcast for a while because he was nice enough to invite us on his podcast a couple of times now. So we finally got him in. He's a writer, he's an actor, he's a filmmaker, longtime stand-up comedian, longtime radio personality, and now...
Is it me? Because that's a pretty impressive intro.
Yes, it is.
I'm like, have I done all those things?
You're a big deal.
Have I done all those things?
You're an impressive guest.
I'm sorry, I thought I was here tonight.
And welcome, Dino Tripodis, man. Thank you.
Yay.
Yay. And yes, you have been on my podcast, and you'll be back again.
Hope so.
When Oscar season rolls around.
Yeah,
you're going to be like that mainstay.
Nice.
You know?
I like that.
Yeah.
And I think this time, when you come back on my podcast, I would like your wife to be with you.
That'd be great.
That would be super great. So the
we drink bourbon.
That's the thing, right? So Whiskey Business is a podcast, and they talk about interesting things, and they drink bourbon, which I don't
You don't have
do.
to.
Okay.
You don't have to.
I mean, I can. I'll just sip at it and make faces.
He takes a little sip.
Yeah. The first time it was a little iffy. Last time I think whatever you brought I liked, so I had more of. So
I have to look back and see. But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me be on this one to talk about just an incredible old movie.
Yeah, we've been wanting to find a good week to have you on, and this seemed perfect because I know you're a longtime lover of movies, but how does the horror genre rank with you? I mean, what do you feel about the entire horror genre?
That's why I was thrilled when you asked me to do this particular podcast, because it's classic horror from the classic days of Universal.
Mm-hmm.
There are some contemporary horror films. We just did a podcast about some of the films of the 70s, whether or not it was the best decade ever.
Oh, that's a good
films.
topic.
And a couple of horror films popped up in that.
Sure.
That scared the bejeebies out of me.
Oh, yeah.
The Exorcist.
Sure, The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby.
Yes. Rosemary's Baby. That one didn't come up.
Oh,
That one didn't come up. The Exorcist come up, and everybody was geeking out on the Shining, which technically
80.
came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they put it into the 70s because they were making it in 70s.
And of course, Jaws was the 70s.
Jaws.
So.
Also.
Well, my favorite is Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right, 70s.
74.
Yeah, so good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
So some of those films,
Yeah.
I never got into when the 80s slasher movies came in. With the exception of like the originals, like the very first John Carpenter Halloween.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, I'm with you
I
there.
thought was great. But when it came into like Prom Night and whatever else, and Friday the 13th Part 12,
Right.
whatever, and the Freddy movies, you know.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, one will come out now as we speak in modern day cinema, whatever you want to call it. That'll be like, wow. The one that was just out with John Krasinski,
Quiet Place.
Quiet Place.
Yeah.
I thought was sensational.
Yeah, well, we agree. We've seen some great horror in the last few years, I think. So we're having a real nice era right now.
I think it's becoming the horror today. A lot of it's becoming far more cinematic. I mean, there's an actual deep storyline in there.
Yeah,
the performances are really good.
Yeah.
So but when you talk about old school, you go back to this.
Yeah.
And the movie we're talking about is
Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
1935, and as Hope likes to say, and I agree 100%, it's one of the very few sequels that is as good, and some might say better than the original.
Say better.
Yeah.
I would say better.
I have said better. I have said that this is the one out of maybe 2 or 3 of all time that is better than the original.
I would say that. Some call it James's Wales masterpiece.
Yeah.
In some cases.
And what's really interesting is the bride herself has become such an iconic figure in horror, and she gets about 3 minutes of screen time. Well, that's just
absolutely,
and really kills nobody.
No.
But what an iconic and what a long-lasting presence in horror. I mean, that hairstyle alone.
Right.
But all you got to see is that image of Elsa Lanchester, made up, and it just speaks volumes.
Yeah, it does.
And that says a lot about the staying power of this movie. It's just one of the many things.
Well, she does get some extra screen time in the beginning.
Right.
She does.
She plays Mary Shelley as well.
Mary Shelley and doing that. And that was a fun way for them to. Let's pick up where we left off, shall we?
Yeah. Right. So for people who, I mean, everybody has seen Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, no doubt. But one of the things that I find sort of interesting about when you watch the first film, which I love, and I love Boris Karloff, who of course doesn't get billed in the first movie. So he gets billed in Bride of Frankenstein just as
Karloff.
I know. And then
that's all you need.
He also doesn't get billed in the animated one that you love so much.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Right. What's the deal, man?
He's the
Nobody can
narrator,
say. Anyway, so one of the things that I think is interesting about The Bride of Frankenstein is that they went back and pulled elements out of Mary Shelley's novel that didn't show up in the first film and kind of worked them into a sequel so that I mean, there are a lot of things in The Bride of Frankenstein that are not in the novel. Pretorius is not in the novel. There are a lot of things, in the original that aren't in the novel. But I really liked that James Whale then revisited some of the, I think, more provocative elements of the novel that they sort of discarded when they did the original in favor of just a straight monster movie.
Right.
Yeah, because speaking of billing, it says it on the screen, the credits, the monster, the mate question mark.
Right.
You know, whereas Elsa Lanchester gets billed as playing Mary Shelley in that beginning prologue, you know, that sets up the entire story. So, I mean, like, yes, everybody could tell who was playing the maid, but that's another little bit of billing fun they had there.
And I love the end credits on that one. So, you know, let's run them again.
Yeah.
You know, they were good enough the first time. Let's run the credits again. The movie's an hour and 16 minutes long.
Right.
Yes.
It moves. It does, man.
It really does.
It scoots, and, you know, I watch a movie like that's an hour and 16 minutes long, and I find it to be extremely satisfying. You know, it works. Then it makes me wonder, like, well, you know, why are some movies 2 hours and 20 minutes long that don't need to be?
Why are superhero movies 2 hours and 20 minutes long, right?
Well, you know, they did this in an hour and 16 minutes, and I felt completely satisfied.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the...
In fact, it left me wanting more, which is good.
Yes.
Yeah, that is always good. And I think one of the reasons it is that short is because there was a lot cut out for various reasons. Censors got to some of it.
Right.
They cut it out. So they did, I think, at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 test screenings that reworked a little bit. But censors took a lot of it. In fact, one of the scene in the gypsy camp, where Frankenstein's monster gets the gypsy camp. That was filmed after everything was done. That's why that's the only scene. If you watch it, it's the only scene in the movie that doesn't have a score behind it because they had to do it so late. They wanted to make up and get at least a few more minutes to make up for stuff that was cut out. And that score is a beloved score.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah,
you know?
No,
and
it's beautiful.
It kind of sticks out. That's the one scene where there's no music whatsoever because
you
they
can
filmed
hear
it
is the
too late.
campfire, which actually I think it works because it makes the scene a little bit creepier because you do hear the cackle of the campfire. And,
right.
And so I don't find it incredibly jarring that the score isn't there, but it is weird.
Yeah.
What I do find interesting about the censorship of that particular film is that they had an issue with some of the dialogue, how they were comparing their work to God.
Sure.
And then that scene where the monster is going to the graveyard and there's Jesus on the cross. I guess originally was the scene supposed to be he was going to try to save that person off, and he just goes.
Oh,
through
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, where he rushes to the graveyard to the figure of a crucified Jesus, and I guess in the original attempts to rescue the figure from the cross.
Oh, yeah.
Now they had an issue with that, but they had no issue putting the monster and lashing him to a pole in a very crucifying way throughout the film, you know, in a very Jesus-like way. They had no issue with that.
You know, what's funny about that is that every time I've seen this movie, I've been struck by how weirdly large that crucifix is. You can't not look at it. And I'm always like, what? Like, I'm always in my head going, what is wrong with James Whale that he put like this insanely giant crucifix right there? And now I know. I know why he put it there.
And another thing that was taken, there was much like the prologue, there was an epilogue featuring the 3 figures, but I guess they talked a little bit too giddily about how freely they lived amongst themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
And yes, that the censors didn't like. And also, I think there was a little bit too much of Elsa boobage.
Oh.
There was.
Yeah.
There was a little too much where they had to trim that down. And yet, they were okay with, when you talk about how lucid, like the Pretorius character being gay.
Yeah.
You know,
well, he's not out.
He's not out. But
here's the thing. He's my favorite character in the movie. And of course, I love the bride. I love that character. I love that image. But Dr. Pretorius is such a great character. And for me, he's clearly a stand-in for James Whale, who was gay. And that's one of the things I think I love about it is that clearly he's gay, but he doesn't say it. You know, I mean, it's not like he hits on boys.
No,
but
he alludes.
Oh, he does.
He alludes.
Yes, and it is. It's amazing that they left all that in.
Yeah, considering what we were just talking about, all that they cut out. But so the upshot of that is you get a 75, 76-minute movie, and that struck me that when we just watched it the other day, last week or so, it did strike me how fast it moves.
Yeah.
But as you said, Dino, it's so satisfying that it does leave you wanting more, which is better than the other way.
So what makes me also chuckle, and I'm going to bring it right back here to the good old state of Ohio. So the review board, the Production Code Office, gives the okay to this film in April of 1935. Then who objects to it? The Censorship Board of Ohio objects to certain scenes. England and China objected to the scene where the monster longingly is looking at the yet unanimated figure of his bride, they said it smacked of necrophilia.
Well, he's dead too.
Yeah,
so I don't think that really counts.
I'm like, no, it's not necrophilia. Dude is waiting for a date.
Yeah.
He's waiting to get a woman.
Yeah.
But Ohio objects to a lot of it. And I'm like, what is wrong with Ohio?
Yeah.
They kicked off prohibition.
Right.
They object to the Bride of Frankenstein.
Come on.
I mean,
right.
Ohio needed a big fat enema back in the 30s.
I think one of the other things that jumps out about this movie, well, first of all, that the monster speaks,
Yeah.
Yes.
which is huge. Not something apparently that Karloff was in favor of.
Oh, interesting.
And he lost that argument.
Because he speaks clearly all through the novel. I mean, he's quite articulate all through the novel.
And also, because of that, it brings a different look to the monster because Karloff in the first one, he didn't wear his bridge plate that he had, for his dental work, so his cheeks were all sunken.
Yeah.
This one, the monster looks a little different because of that.
He definitely does.
He didn't want to speak. You tell me he did not want to speak in the second.
Not from what I've read. Not from what I've read.
I find that interesting because it added something. It added a little depth to his character.
It did.
Well, and as you point out about the book, it kind of follows.
And it seems like as he was getting older, it seemed like he was, being able to distinguish between a little bit of right and wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, he had decision making.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
Not to be a spoiler.
Come on, it's only been
Right.
It's only been 80 some years.
Yeah.
But when he says, "No, you go live,"
Right.
when he talks to his creator and makes that decision. And then pulls that lever.
Yeah.
Then I thought about this. I mean, who the hell has a lever like that where it destroys everything in one fell swoop?
Batman.
That's right.
Who has that lever? Like,
Yeah.
don't pull that lever. It'll just blow up the whole castle.
Right.
Who put that in to begin with?
Yeah, that was a bad design.
Yeah.
That was a bad decision.
And it's interesting because in the years from the first one to this one, I guess James Whale resisted making this sequel for a while, and there was a time when they were thinking of making it without him, and one of the ideas for a story was to have the monster very educated, not just learning a little bit, but become quite an educated, monster. So it is kind of funny that he would resist kind of a natural order of the monster learning and speaking a little bit, but it also goes in hand in hand with it. The monster looking a little different, like I said, because of the dental work. And also, he has a bit of a different makeup with the face because I guess the makeup artist, if you carry the story from the first one, he had just been out of in a fire. He just survived a fire, the monster had. So he's going to look a little bit different, a little worse for wear, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I also found a couple things that I'm going, oh, yeah. The line. To a New World of God and Monsters.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh my gosh, the movie God and Monsters
Yes.
with Ian McKellen playing James Whale.
Yeah.
Very good movie, by the way. Look it up if you
yeah.
What
have.
a great movie that was.
And Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it won an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay because it's based on the book
Of Gods and Monsters.
Father of Frankenstein.
And Ian McKellen was nominated for an Oscar for his
Yes.
performance.
Yeah, he was great.
That was a
He
great
was
movie.
great.
It really was.
I love that movie.
And so To a New World of Gods and Monsters. Oh, that movie. That's where they got the title for that film. Yeah.
Exactly right. And you mentioned Pretorius, and I know you love that character so much.
Pretorius.
I do love that character, and I think the Frankenstein, the original, as much as I love it, there's no humor, right? There's just not. It's not a funny movie. And Pretorius brings so much depth and interesting flavor to the sequel, but in particular, he just this incredible dark humor that he, in every scene he's in the way he looks, and of course, Minnie also is hilarious.
Oh, she is.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's hysterical. And then the scenes where they're together, where and he just looks a fright. I mean, I love that element to this movie. I love that they brought a lot of humor to it.
And you imagine how that might have been different. Because legend has it, Bela Lugosi was almost cast as Pretorius.
Oh, that would...
You don't see a lot of humor there.
No. That would have been disappointing.
Yeah.
That would have been unfortunate.
Exactly. But he does. He brings a great presence. And Minnie is so funny because Minnie just seems like whatever's happening, there she is.
Yeah.
You turn a corner, Minnie's right there.
Busybody Minnie. There she is. She's got something to say.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
And she screams and yells, and the monster doesn't seem to like that very much. He usually seems to kill the people that won't shut up. But not Minnie. No. Minnie gets a pass.
Exactly right. Now, I think one thing that was, correct me if I'm wrong, one thing that was taken right from the book was the blind hermit.
Yeah, and that is how in the novel that
I know what you're thinking of, Dino. I know exactly.
I couldn't help but think about it. They did such a wonderful job at Young Frankenstein,
Yes.
recreating that and staying very close to how things worked in the film.
That is a great scene.
And yet incorporate right down to the cigar.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I couldn't help but smile and go, "Oh, good for you, Mel Brooks."
That's right.
That was just so parallel and yet not to the original.
That's an all-timer. But that came right from the original novel.
It
correct?
did. So when the monster hides, he hides in sort of this sort of second building. And watches a whole family, and among the family is a blind man, and this is how he learns how to read, and this is how he learns lots of things, and he cuts wood and things and leaves gifts for the family. Then he befriends the old man, and then of course the rest of the family sees him and freaks out. So I like that they brought that in, and I think one of the things that the sequel tries to do is emphasize how sympathetic the character is. Mm-hmm. So with that, and just his longing, obviously for a mate, but just for anyone. So he's not completely alone on this planet. And I think that, although to me, the cigar smoking I found, and I continue to find, weird. It's just weird to me. I'm like, why? I don't feel like I should be seeing Frankenstein smoking a cigar and laughing about it. Like, it's just every time it strikes me, it's just throws me off kilter.
No, this is good. Smoke. You try. Good.
It's and maybe I didn't focus on that because I was so enamored with the fact that Mel Brooks and Young Frankenstein. I mean, and Gene Hackman in that role. I mean, I was looking at the old guy
in Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah. It's like, you know, it was so perfect. But I never thought about that. Seeing like, and he likes it.
It's weird. It's just a weird idea. I mean, I understand food and wine, sure, but he likes a cigar, and why? I don't know. Plus, he doesn't like fire, so it seemed off.
Do you guys, you know, you keep stressing the book, which is an amazing book and a classic in literature. Not to get away from Bride of Frankenstein, but just as a sidebar, do you think that there have been any faithful adaptations of Mary Shelley's book?
There have,
as far as horror films go,
and there have been some that are much closer.
I know that people have tried,
right? I don't think that they've been successful. I don't think. I mean, and I think that I feel like the two James Whale films are by far the best adaptations there are, even though they take wild liberties with the novel. I think the one that stays closest is Kenneth Branagh's, which is just god awful.
It's not good.
No. And I think that, you know, when you watch it, maybe because Boris Karloff's performance is so iconic, it's hard to take a monster who's smart. You just think, oh, I don't want this one. I want the scary one that just wanders around like an oversized child. Like, cinematically, I don't know if it's because Wales was first, and that's the one that we're used to and the one we like better.
That's probably a lot of it.
But I just don't think the ones that really are somewhat closer to the text, I don't think they work as well.
And then since you guys are in the know and watch see way more movies than most average humans. Actually, you guys watch more movies than above average humans. It's amazing. But I'm curious, and then we'll come back to the core here, but the Universal reboots, if you will, like The Mummy was not very successful.
No,
but that was supposed to be the start of a whole rebooting, and they introduced, you know, the Jekyll Hyde character in there with Russell Crowe. Yeah. Was there plans in
Javier Bardem was going to do Frankenstein.
Was or still is? Are they going to continue?
I think it's been put on hold, has it not?
Because The Mummy was such a it made money, but it's because it made money globally.
Worldwide,
it did not make money in the United States.
Javier Bardem as the monster, or
you know
Javier
what?
Bardem as Dr. Frankenstein?
I think he was the doctor, but I'm not positive because they really. I mean, so you know, Johnny Depp was going to be the Invisible Man, and Javier Bardem was signed up for the Frankenstein reboot, but I don't think it was clear. But I think he was playing the doctor.
Okay.
Because the thing that just was so apparent to me from that Mummy reboot was that if this is the tone that they're going to take with this entire thing, oh my Lord, what a colossal mistake. Colossal. That movie was Terrible.
That was just well, especially you guys review them and see them. I'm on the outside looking in most of the time, but yeah,
it was awful.
How do they spend that much money and make that many mistakes?
Yeah. It really was just a colossal thud.
Yeah.
And I'm really not surprised that they just put the brakes on the entire thing, because they were just, going to drive it into a disaster, the entire thing, if this was a harbinger of what they were going to be looking at.
Right.
Just terrible.
Before I saw The Mummy, I thought to myself that I thought Johnny Depp, that could be an interesting, and anything Javier Bardem, I'm all in.
Oh,
anything
yeah.
Javier Bardem does, I'm all in.
Me too.
But then, as soon as I saw The Mummy, I thought, oh, good Lord. And then also the next one would have been Jekyll and Hyde. And right away, you're like, no. And Russell Crowe's incredibly talented.
He
You could just tell the writing, the tone, as you said. I thought the CGI wasn't good. And that seemed like the type of film they were trying to make was like a CGI blockbuster.
Yeah.
And the whole thing felt closer to the Brendan Fraser mummies than to the Universal Mummy.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't as good.
And the first Brendan Fraser Mummy was a kind of a guilty pleasure.
Yeah,
for
it was
me.
fine.
I mean,
it was. And it was mainly because the guy who played the Mummy was great.
Right.
Yeah. But then the sequels just got worse and worse.
Yeah, they got progressively
just terrible.
Bad,
so that's what the latest that we've heard is that the whole thing's on hold. So we'll see about this.
It comes down to the freaking story.
Yes,
it does.
Always comes back to the story and the writing. And it's interesting you mentioned the Dr. Frankenstein, because that's a little tidbit that people forget, that he wasn't really a doctor.
He was a baron.
He
did go to medical school.
But he didn't finish though, right? Because he thought that they didn't teach him what he needed to know. True. So I think in this movie, in Bride of Frankenstein, he's only ever referred to as Baron or Herr.
Well, Herr
Frankenstein.
because in the first, he's only Baron because his father dies in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So then he's the Baron, but he's also a bad dude who's kind of sick.
But he's just become known throughout pop culture as Dr. Frankenstein.
Well,
which
he's
is
also not supposed to be Henry. He's Henry in this. He's actually Victor Frankenstein in them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot of just weird little. I always wondered about that. Why go with Henry? Why not go with, I don't know. I mean, Henry is his friend the monster kills in the novel. So I just always wondered, what, did you just get confused? I don't understand. Although when you watch the Hammer versions, especially all of the Draculas, they always use all the same names as the characters in the novel, but they always assign them to different people. I'm watching going, but that's not Mina. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Why do you call her Mina? Is it just to confuse me?
And they also write you off as dead too quickly. I mean, in the beginning of the film, he's dead as a doornail, supposedly.
It's really funny. He's just unconscious.
He's just knocked out.
I mean, have you never seen anyone unconscious before?
Maybe he was in shock or something, but he wasn't dead. Oh, no, he's like...
It's like Monty Python. I'm not dead.
That's right.
Dead.
It's just a flesh wound.
Oh, funny.
Going back to Pretorius, I think that's an interesting line to mark between the movie and the book, because Pretorius, as you said, is a character not in the book at all.
No.
But if you look at it, that character that's where the monster character kind of deviates from the book, because, as you mentioned, they keep the monster somewhat innocent.
Right.
Whereas in the book, he's like a cold-blooded killer, which is more like Pretorius. Pretorius has evil intentions here. Yeah. And that's where they kind of deviate right there. And the monster in Bride continues to be innessent. To a degree. Yeah, where Pretorius is not.
Yeah, where'd you get the body? That's not important. Don't worry about it.
I love that, because that's Dwight Fry, who's Renfield from the Bela Lugosi.
Right. Yeah.
Which, and I remember
the henchman,
bashing my head. Yeah, Carl. It's just who is that guy? I'm thinking, well, he wasn't in. I'm like Frankenstein. I'm like, this character wasn't in Frankenstein. How do I know this and love this guy? I know I love this man. Why do I love this? He's Renfield.
Yeah,
he's the best of the Renfields. You like him even better than Tom Waits.
Tom Waits. I was going to say that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's
a lot to say.
That's high praise.
That's right.
High praise. And I love Pretorius's. This is what I've done. Look at the little things I've made. The little people.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was just, and that was one of the things I think that it was that England may have had a problem with as well. Because they thought when he picks up whatever he uses to pick up that they were mocking they were mocking the king, mocking the king by picking him up with the tweezers or whatever the hell he used to put him back in the jar when he was trying to go after his queen. Yeah.
Can I tell you, when I was a little kid, the first time I saw this movie, the thing that bothered me the most when the movie was over was that there would be no one to go back and feed those people in jars. I was very bothered by that as a little kid. I'm like, well, if he's dead, I don't think he has friends. Who's going to feed these? Yeah, I was very bothered by that.
Here's the thing that stuck out to me about that scene is I kept thinking, where did they get the little clothes? I mean, okay, I'm with you on the people. You've got little people, but where'd you get the little clothes?
Crazy,
so it's a somewhat different interpretation. But that's a weird little part of it. But it adds to the Pretorius legend. You know, he's a weirdo.
Yeah,
and
he's
one of those guys. We often talk about movies, horror movies specifically, where what side characters need their own movie.
Yeah.
You could do a Pretorius.
They could have been a Pretorius.
A whole backstory type of thing. And then we might find out where he got those clothes.
Right, exactly. My favorite is when the monster just finds him down in the crypt and he's just sort of having some wine and laughing and talking to a skull. I love that.
That's all.
I love that. And then he's just so not bothered. He's still like nonplussed by, oh, right, you, hello.
This is just another Tuesday night for me.
That's right.
So, you know, what are the other things that you guys think has led this to be as good or, as you say, maybe better than the first one that makes it so? Because that is so rare to take a classic movie, a great movie, and even better it. I mean, what is it about this movie that rises it to those heights?
I was thinking about that, and one of the things might be the addition of a character like Pretorius.
Sure.
I mean, there was and when you said, like, I didn't know that the monster, the Karloff, did not want to speak. I think the monster speaking and progressing and developing, I think those things made it a little bit better for me. And it's been a long time since I'd seen it. So I watched it again before we came in today, and I was like, wow, you're right. The bride doesn't pop in till it's almost over.
And I think that's part of it. I think the less is more, you know, like you don't get to see the shark in Jaws until so far into the movie. And she has such an incredible look. I mean, the design of her look when she comes out of the bandages
and the
is
fact that
insane.
He looks so, she hates me.
Yes.
You know, it's just that kind of breaks your heart.
It's a very primal. It really does.
You know, it's like Match.com gone awry. Right. Like, this is, she's looking at him going, no. Yeah. This is not what I came back to life for.
No. It's funny. So for me, I think there are two. There's a lot about this film that's very subversive. And for the Pretorius character, especially as kind of a stand-in for James Whale, there is something very subversive about that character, which is just an absolute joy that I think, especially in that time period, you never saw. You never really saw people sort of bending your expectations in this way. But also, I think one of the things that makes the film remain relevant today is that she, even though she is not on screen for very long, is a character, and she's not, everybody wants her to just make him happy.
Yes.
Just make him happy. And she's like, fuck you.
Right.
Do you want to date this guy? I don't want to date this. I don't want to be here.
Which is great.
It is. It's brilliant.
Where you subvert the expectations of the audience.
It's a feminist film.
Yes.
Oh,
as we have talked about before. When we did a podcast specifically about feminism in horror, and very much you included this on the list for sure. And also, you can't discount how good of a screamer she is. She's a great screamer.
Because it's not a victim scream.
No.
She's got that horrible noise that she makes. It's really unpleasant. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And she does. She just looks amazing.
She does.
That's a feat unto itself, because when you saw Frankenstein, that look, the way that they crafted, that is like maybe the most iconic horror image is of Frankenstein, more than of Dracula, more than of the Mummy, more because they all, they just look like dudes, or they look like. I mean, there was no reason for anybody to think before James Whale made the 1931 Frankenstein that the monster would look like that. There's no reason for him to look like that, and now that's just what he looks like.
Right.
That's what we think of.
Yeah. And I think that's a tough. That's tough to follow up when you have the second monster to make.
Yes.
What are you going to do? When you look at her in the very famous, she's alive, and she's just completely covered in bandages. Now I'm thinking to myself, where's the hair? Like, where did they keep all that hair inside those bandages? But I mean, the flowing robes and the hair and the whole everything about it, where all of the stitches are placed. I mean, it's just such a cool image.
It really is, yeah. And it's become, and you're right, how you can take an image that was already so iconic of Frankenstein and go better than that. It's hard to imagine. If you put that in today's terms, you think of a movie that has become so iconic, and then you can think of a way that, we're going to even do better than that. Normally, it's such a colossal failure to try to follow that up. But here, it was not at all.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's probably a sequel that there's a handful of, not even a handful, I can count on one hand, of sequels that are just as good or surpass the original.
Yeah.
And that's one of them.
Definitely.
It's one of them without a doubt.
Yeah.
And is there a word, probably not a good word, for the Sting and Jennifer Beals remake?
Oh, yeah, that's pretty weak. That's pretty weak.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yes.
Or blocked it out one way or the other.
No.
I just, and I remember the De Niro.
Yeah, that's
the Kenneth Branagh one.
Kenneth Branagh one, right?
Yeah.
With that one. That's right. You mentioned that earlier.
That was one where in the book he decides not to make a mate, and he kills. So Frankenstein, the monster, kills Elizabeth, and so in Kenneth Branagh's, he considers turning Elizabeth into. I remember. There is no better modern day goth girl, really, than Helena Bonham Carter.
No.
I wanted her to be that. I'm like, please, Elsa Lanchester, Helena Bonham Carter for right now. So that was another huge disappointment for me that didn't happen.
Well, yeah, because I remember when we first heard about that one and De Niro, we were excited about it.
We were excited about it,
that has possibility.
I was excited and nervous at the same time.
Yeah.
I kept saying, you think about classic De Niro performances, and I knew that he had it in him to do something, because he's a great actor when he wants to be.
Right.
Not lately. He's just been, walking through it. But I remember me and my friends were saying that is it going to be a Frankenstein monster? It's like you talking to me, talking to me, one of those type of characters. But no, I don't think I hated it as much as you guys did.
I think
that particular one,
I found it very disappointing. I think I had high expectations because Kenneth Branagh at the time, to me, wasn't Branagh. He was like a good actor and a good filmmaker, and now I realize how Branagh he has become.
And how he photographed himself in that movie.
Yeah, he's got all the the pec makeup on to make it look like he's and
the shirt
the flowing robes. Yeah.
Very Branagh.
Very Branagh.
Yeah. So do you think, I haven't heard of anything, but the way Hollywood repeats itself, do you think we'll see more adaptations of one of these in the future? I mean, we talked about this rebooted ones that...
Something tells me that, so Universal, they probably contracted to do this, and if this falls through, there's going to be some time period before they can contract to do it again. So this is my guess. I mean, people will make it because Universal doesn't own Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Right.
But, just 3 or 4 years ago, Frankenstein came out. And then just maybe 2 years ago, Victor Frankenstein came out, right? With Harry Potter and
Daniel Radcliffe
and James McAvoy.
Yeah.
As you know, I really wanted to go. I did go see it. I saw it in the theater on the day that it opens because James McAvoy reminds me of our son. He looks just like our son. And Harry Potter also reminds me. I was just like, it's like my son and his favorite plaything. Let's go watch them tank a film because that was bad.
Did not see it.
It was better than Frankenstein.
I'm sure. Yeah, Frankenstein. That's just.
I did not see that one either.
Yeah, well, you didn't miss anything.
No.
But you know what? Going back to Javier Bardem, if they just start over, different tone, writing, get the writing correct. I mean, he's the kind of actor that you can anchor that type of movie around. I'd be down for it.
Yeah, if they can't reboot it to make this to interconnect them all, what they seem like they were trying to do with the Mummy. I have no problem with having another good version. Of Frankenstein,
absolutely,
or the Invisible Man with Johnny Depp for that matter.
Yeah. We haven't done that since Kevin Bacon's Hollow Man, and that would have been like the 90s maybe. I mean, it's been a long time since anybody's done the Invisible Man.
As we've all said, all comes back to the story. It comes back to the writing. If you have it, you have something.
If you do it, if they were to do it again, one of the things that I think James Whale did better than most of the other people who've made it is that he made the monster the interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when Hammer did it, right, with Christopher Lee, and when most other people do it, they find the doctor, they find Frankenstein, the mad scientist, the more interesting character. And so that's where they invest the most time. I don't think he is, because the doctor with a god complex. Who doesn't know one of those? Who cares? You know what we don't know? Animated corpses. We don't know them. Like, that's a way more interesting, let me get to know this guy.
Get to know me. Exactly right. Well, just one of the many things that makes Bride of Frankenstein just such a great movie. One of the few, as we've said many times here, one of the few that equals or betters the original. Dino Tripodis, our special guest. Let's talk about your podcast that you've had us on. It's Whiskey Business. When we're on, we talk about, of course, movies, but you cover all sorts of things.
Whiskey Business, as our little tagline says, is a podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. And yeah, the topics, the only running theme is that each week we have a different bottle of whiskey that I share with my guests, some who imbibe and some like the wolves who do not necessarily, which is fine. It's not a prerequisite to drink whiskey. One of my favorite guests was an astrophysicist from OSU.
Oh, nice.
Who did not drink. And that's one of my favorite podcasts that we ever had.
Nice.
We also had one recently in the last couple of months called Matt, an alcoholic. And the guest bottle was no bottle because he was very open and forthcoming and honest about his addiction and where he was. He's currently in recovery as we speak, but you know, he shared his trials and tribulations with the disease of alcoholism.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So our topics run from A to Z. Haven't had a zoologist yet, but I'm getting there. So yeah, the guests range from, like I said, A to Z. And we've been having a great time. We just started a YouTube channel as well. So now you can watch the raw, unedited podcast on YouTube, and the one that we have on iTunes and SoundCloud, et cetera, are just slightly edited for time.
Right.
You know, just some of the things. But we've been having a blast with it. WhiskeyBusinessShow.com, all one word, is where you need to go, where you can probably get everything. And it's available wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, SoundCloud, all of those other
Stitcher,
fun things.
All of those.
Stitcher. Yeah. We're also on Instagram. We have a Facebook page. My producer Greg Hansberry is the one that reminds me to tell people about that because I'm horrible with social media. I really am. I suck. And I suck with social media. I'm the worst.
You do what we do on occasion is take it on the road. You record remotely out on different locations, correct?
Yes, we've done that, and we're going to try to do that some more. Some of the fun things we're planning on doing is a Whiskey Business podcast comedy show.
Ooh. Wow.
As well at the Funny Bone.
Nice.
I might as well bring some of that, give some of my friends where we'll open it up. Comic will do 15, sit with me for 15. Next comic does 15, sits with me for 15. And we end up doing a 90-minute show at the Funny Bone.
Nice.
Good stuff.
My friend. You too, John Whitney. Did you know John?
Oh, John, yeah.
Very talented filmmaker.
Very talented.
Well, we work together on our films together.
Yeah. Yes.
So he is producing our YouTube channel.
Nice.
So, you know.
You got stuff cooking.
You do.
You know what I have? I have good people surrounding me so that all I have to worry about is talking. You know, without those two gentlemen, Greg Hansberry and John Whitney, you know, Whiskey Business would just be, you know, me sitting at home drinking
whiskey,
drinking and writing my memoirs. But no, thank you so much for letting me do this. It was a blast.
Yeah.
I love it, and I look forward to having you both on come Oscar time.
Great.
I think the husband and wife thing is the way to go this time.
Yes, I agree.
Because I'm sure you guys don't always agree.
We almost always do.
Although we don't always agree as to who should win or who will win. So when it comes to the Oscar, I think ballot, sometimes the two of us vary more than just week by week what movies are good and what are not.
Most of the time we agree on whether a movie is good or not.
Yeah.
But some of the picks come Oscar time. We have a little disagreement. So that'll be fun. No, we look forward to that.
And also, I will probably inquire of both of you is not only the movie, we talk about the movies that'll be nominated come Oscar time, but I'm also going to find out one thing we really didn't get into on either of them is the ones that you say that
got snubbed.
They got snubbed. They should have been.
Yeah.
We're going to dig into the snubs a little bit more.
Sounds like a good plan. I like it.
Nice. You guys see so many. I think you see every movie that's out there.
We see a lot.
We see a lot.
Yeah. Because the last year we kept a tally.
352 we saw in 2017.
Yeah, we watched 352.
you guys talk to each other?
we yell down the hall. What are you
That's the
watching?
thing. Yeah, because a lot of times we're in just two different rooms watching two different movies.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, man, we look forward to that.
I'm sorry to make this get longer than it was. I just wanted everybody to know that these two wonderful people are going to be on Whiskey Business come Oscar time.
Yay!
So that's
and look
what I
up
look
Whiskey
forward to.
Business, all the episodes. It's very entertaining.
Yeah, it is. It's a great show.
And we look forward to that Funny Bone thing. That'll be great.
Yeah, I think we're shooting to do that sometime next year. I've spoken with Dave Stroop over at the Funny Bone, and they're all in. So
good stuff. All right, look forward to that. Thank you so much. It's been a blast.
Thank you guys. I like I said, thrilled, honored, flattered. And anytime I get to geek out about a favorite movie, that's a good night for me.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, we loved your help on our installment of this series of podcasts.
The next installment will be on the Terrible Terror podcast, and here's a sneak peek.
Hey, do you love horror movies?
What's up, ninjas?
Horrible horror movies?
Otherwise known as the pleasure zone.
Then you should listen to the Terrible Terror podcast.
I'm just trying to spread a little Yuletide fear.
I'm very happy to join the sequel to the Universal Monster horror films.
Wolfman's got NARS.
This episode, I'll be covering Return of the Creature from the Black Lagoon. You can check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Or I'm gonna send Nick Cage after you.
You scraping at the door? Scraping at the door!
So we look forward to that, and we hope to see you at the next Fright Club Live, November 14th, Gateway Film Center for Black Sheep and Mutant Animals. Until then, keep in touch if you can. You can always find us on Twitter, at Fright Club Pod, on Facebook and Instagram. We're Mad Wolf Columbus, and the main website is madwolf.com. So until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast. Dino!
Stay frightful, my friends.
Nice.